Listen, I got to speak on this real quick. I'm sick and tired of hearing these crazy WWE weirdo fans. And by the way, I grew up an old school WWF fan. When I first started watching wrestling, when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, it was my Grandpa Ray's old WWF tapes from 1988. And watching feud between Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. The original main event, which was actually aired on a Friday. Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant, the evil twin Ebners. That's some of the first wrestling I ever saw. It was my grandpa's wrestling tapes that he had taped off of network television. My grandpa Ray was a wrestling fan, and that was his tapes that were at his house, the lake house. That I spent a lot of time at over the summer and on weekends growing up. That's the first wrestling I ever seen when I was a little kid. So let me make it real clear here. I'm not anti-WWE. I'm not anti-WWF. I grew up watching this shit. But I got to comment on Mick Foley because I'm tired of hearing these butthurt WWE fans taking pot shots at the hardcore legend from Long Island, New York. The one and the only Mrs. Foley's baby boy, Mick Foley. I have met Mick Foley. Okay, I met him after his stand-up comedy show, wrestling legend comedy tour deal, whatever you want to call it. I saw him in Muncie, Indiana. It was at this bar. It's actually right next to my favorite bar, which is called the Harrod in Muncie, where I went to college. Anyway, same people own the Harrod also owned a place called Doc's, which is no longer there. It's no longer there, but it used to be right next door to the Harrod, which is still going strong. Doc's has since been closed, but they used to have a place. They used to have live shows there. Mick Foley came, and my buddy Travis and I went and saw him do comedy, tell old wrestling stories and stuff like that. And this would have been back in 2013 or 2014. It was either the very end of 2013 or beginning of 14. I'm not 100%. It seemed like it was maybe in December. But anyway, I remember this specifically because I was not living in central Indiana at the time. I had to drive down to watch the show. I was living up north at that point, up in northern Indiana. And my friend and I attended it. I got to meet Mick after the show. He's a great human being. He's a father. He's a husband. Wrestling legend, all around great guy. I've also read a couple of his books. So I'm a big Mick Foley fan. New York Times best-selling author, by the way. Have a Nice Day. And then his first book, which is his autobiography, where he told all crazy hardcore wrestling stories from his career. But he's catching all kinds of flack now from the same people that cheered for him for the longest time, just because he has signed a contract with Tony Khan and gone to AEW. Well, last I checked, wrestling's a business. And Mick Foley is a legend. He has worked in territories all across the country. He was in the WCW, the ECW. And of course, he made himself, got over big as, and he deserved it, by God. He got over big as a star in the late 90s Attitude Era WWF. Didn't hurt that he had guys like Jim Ross and Jim Cornette, who were working in talent relations, working in creative, who were big fans of his. Apparently when Mick first went to the WWF, Vince McMahon, obviously was the boss, didn't really see a lot of Mick. So Mick had to grind, and he had to bust his ass in that crazy, working as a crazy Mankind character, and also in the various reiterations of Cactus Jack, just to, get an opportunity before he ever got a shot against The Rock for the world title. And he's one of the more remarkable, unlikely champions. In fact, I remember when my friend Jason Schuler contacted me out of the blue and says, Mick Foley won the world title. I was like, what? What the hell? Because this was late 90s, and my family had moved from the middle of town where I grew up, little middle town, to the country at that point. My parents bought property out there and they're building a house out there. So we moved from small town out in the country. I go from having all kinds of friends that I played with in town all the time to kind of being more on my own out in the country. And one sacrifice that the family that we had to make when we moved was my parents said, we're not going to have cable television for a couple of years while we pay down this mortgage, because they took all their life savings, put it into buying land and building a house. And it was a big sacrifice for my parents, who both worked and had good middle class jobs, but shit's expensive, especially when you buy a new house and 20 acres of land, which is what they did. So anyway, we had to go without cable TV for a couple of years, and I didn't get to watch a lot of wrestling. So sometimes friends would fill me in on what was going on. I would watch what I could. My grandma actually would tape wrestling, sometimes send it to me. I would also go online. I would read, show reports and stuff like that. But I didn't get to watch Mick Foley win the world title at the, 01/4/99, I think. It was the same night as the Finger Poke of Doom over in WCW. It's interesting that it was the same night as that, when Foley beat The Rock for the world title, because it was really kind of, WCW kind of went down. They went down after that. WWE kept rising. And so that was a turning point. That was, I think, a turning point during the Attitude Era. But I've met Mick Foley. I've talked with him. I got a photo with him, got a signed autograph photo, as well as a photo of just me and Mick. Somebody took for me after the show. And I just think he's a great person. He's also a good businessman, a smart dude, good father. And I really think he's a great signing by Tony Khan, and really kind of a great coup for AEW. And that's why all these WWE fans are upset. They know how influential and important a guy like Mick Foley is. And I really think Mick Foley, I think the role that he should play in AEW, have to wait and see what all he does. But I think it's just my suggestion and just my opinion. Okay? But I think he'd be a great mentor for a lot of those young guys over there. I think he'd be a good mentor even for a lot of these guys who are more established, like Kenny Omega, like the Young Bucks. Clearly, they don't necessarily need mentors. These guys are founding fathers of AEW. They've been around forever. But I do think Mick Foley is one of those guys that everybody respects. He's a lot like Sting in that respect. And I think Foley, especially being the hardcore legend, for a company full of young guys that loves hardcore matches, who loves the ECW. We know Tony Khan himself was a big ECW fan. Well, guess who was a hardcore legend in ECW? Mick Foley. Guess who was always going to be associated with hardcore death matches forever, in life and in death? Mick Foley. And guess who's well thought of and respected among people all over the industry? Not just folks in WWE or the AEW or the old timers like Jim Cornette, who like to critique everything and everybody. Foley's kind of one of those universally respected people, like Sting and like a few other guys, like maybe The Undertaker, you name a few others. Steve Austin, guy with a lot, very well respected as well. Anyway, I think that these butthurt WWE fans are going to rue the day that they decided to pick a fight with Mick Foley. I think that as far as Mick's politics and stuff, trying to keep that out of this, because, but I will have to say I agree with Jim Cornette. I do respect Mick a lot for giving up his WWE Legends deal and leaving to make a statement, to say that he didn't think WWE should be doing business with Trump, and he didn't think WWE should be kissing this authoritarian president's ass. It takes a lot of balls to do that. It takes FU money. Well, Mick Foley's probably got some FU money. But at the same time, he's got children. He's got a wife. He's still got a family he supports, even at 60. So he did take a risk, and he did make a sacrifice, and gave up good money with the WWE Legends deal, just to make a statement, say, I don't think this should be supporting Trump. And that takes balls, whether you agree with his politics or not. You don't have to. I'm not saying you have to. If you are a supporter of Trump, then okay, whatever. But I don't get where these WWE fans get off with saying Mick Foley's a cuck, or Mick Foley's doing this just for money. Or clearly he's not doing this just for money. I think Mick Foley's probably made enough money at this point that he would never have to work in wrestling again. He could, and if he wanted to, all he'd have to do is go around to these conventions once in a while, sign some autographs, take some photos, make some money on the side doing that. The only reason he's still working in the industry is because he wants to. And I think as we saw him get involved with the promo with MJF and Darby at Double or Nothing, it was a great moment in AEW history. It was a great moment, New York wrestling history, because the show was in New York. And I don't know how you couldn't, if you watched that, if you saw clips of it, whatever, even if you're a big WWE mark, you don't like AEW much, I don't know how you could say that it was in poor taste or that it wasn't good. Because it was good, a good segment. He helped hype the MJF and Darby match, which was not the greatest match, but it was still an interesting world title match, in my opinion. And so for him to come out, because everybody compared Darby Allin to Mick Foley as far as the big upset win on the weekly program, similar to Foley winning a title on Raw back in 1999, Darby winning the title on Dynamite. Everybody compared the two because, they're both daredevils. They both are into like hardcore matches. There's some similarities. They're both underdog characters, Darby Allin and Mick Foley. So for the two to be compared, it totally makes sense to me. I thought I made the comparison right after Darby won. But anyway, I think the perfect role for Mick Foley is to work as a mentor in that company. We're going to see him as a commentator. We'll see him do some stuff with Renee on the pre-shows and things like that. But I really think that Mick would be a good mentor for a lot of folks, like your Ospreys, your Ricochets, your Darby Allins. We go on down the line. There's a lot of young talent, and guys have been in the business 20 years, but they're still young and still have potential to go to greater heights. A guy like Mick Foley, my opinion, possibly could be the perfect mentor for a lot of these young wrestlers in the AEW. So, and maybe that's why these WWE people are jealous. I don't know. Personally, I'm not that tribal. I want to see both companies do well. And of course, I want to see AEW be strong because that's good for wrestling. And it's also good for the fans, for us to have competition. And so you people need to get off your high horses. You should respect Mick Foley. I've met the man personally. I've talked with him. He's very down to earth. He's a very nice man. I got a photo with him. I don't have it here with me, or I would show it to you. But I love Mick Foley. Above all, everybody should respect him, regardless of where he is, because Mick Foley is a great asset to any wrestling company. And if you don't think that, then what are we doing here? What are we doing? And what is wrong with these people? Like, did you forget the reason you began watching wrestling as a kid and why you enjoyed it? I didn't. I haven't forgotten. I did it because it's good escapism. It's good entertainment. So let's enjoy wrestling for what it is and not take it so damn seriously all the time. All right. Have a good night. Thanks.